Hello and welcome back to Build a CubeSat. I'm Manuel and today we are going to take a first look at the attitude, determination and control system for my CubeSat. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. I'm currently working on the next revisions of the PCBs and I still need some more time to make a video about that. So in the meantime I would like to talk about my plans for the attitude, determination and control system, or ADCS for short. Some people also say ADACS. Attitude in this context just means orientation, so basically which direction the satellite is pointing. To be honest, ADCS is one of the more daunting aspects for me because it gets complex fast. For this project, this once again means making sensible decisions early on to land on something that performs well enough at a reasonable level of complexity and cost. This video is a general high-level overview of the ADCS I envision, and we will dive deeper into the theory and implementation in future videos. The best intro to ADCS I have found so far is this slide deck by Dr. Toshinori Kuwahara of Tohoku University. You will find the link to this and all the other resources I reference throughout the video in the description and also on CubeSat-resources.space. Alright, let's dive in. When a CubeSat is released from its deployer, it will have some spin to it. That could be as little as a few degrees per second and up to dozens of degrees per second, and that's in all three axes. And that's not ideal, because we want to make sure that our satellite's solar panels are facing the sun while radiators need to face space. Or if we have a directional antenna on the CoM system, that will need to be pointed at our ground segment. And possibly the payload needs a specific orientation too, for example for Earth observation or astrophotography. As the term ADCS implies, this splits into two fundamentally different problems. First, attitude determination, so figuring out how the satellite is oriented and how it's rotating. And second, attitude control, which means actually changing that orientation in a controlled way. The first task after separation is to stop the CubeSat from tumbling around. This could be done with passive attitude control mechanisms like magnets and hysteresis rods, gravity gradient booms, and in low Earth orbit even aerodynamics. These are very clever approaches because they don't need any battery power or software to work, but they are also kind of limited in that they will stop the tumbling motion, but we won't be able to actively control where the CubeSat is pointing. So I will focus on active attitude control, which means first determining the rate of rotation in all three axes, then actuating the control system so the tumble stops, and then throughout the mission use the system to stay in a stable orientation or to point it where I need it to point. The most common methods for attitude determination on CubeSats are magnetometers, gyroscopes, and Earth, Sun or star trackers. On the active control side, we commonly use Magnetorquers and reaction wheels. Thrusters are of course also used, but on CubeSats these are more common for orbit control rather than attitude control and are also wildly expensive and complex and therefore beyond the scope of this project for now. Speaking of orbit determination and control, let's take a quick detour here. ADCS is actually part of a bigger concept called GNC, which stands for Guidance, Navigation and Control. Guidance is about what the spacecraft is trying to do, navigation is figuring out where it is and how it's moving, and control is changing its state to get the desired result. It's important to understand that attitude determination alone won't tell us anything about which orbit the CubeSat is in. From what I understand, orbit determination in practice works as follows. A satellite operator will get pre-launch TLEs from their launch provider or launch broker. TLEs, or two-line element sets, are just a way for encoding orbital parameters. Then after launch, when the CubeSat has separated, it will get tracked from the ground by NORAD, which publishes the actual TLEs on Celestrak, and over a few orbits these measurements will become more accurate. At that point, the operator should be able to pick up the RF beacon from the satellite and start commissioning, which means bringing it online. Private space domain awareness companies like Leo Labs also offer these tracking services on demand. If I want to measure my satellite's exact location myself, I will need to have a GNSS receiver on board. And that would be great to have anyways because GNSS is a stratum 0 time source, which means I will get the exact time down to a few nanoseconds. And yes, that kind of stuff always makes me think of Jeff Geerling's Adventures in Precise Time. I will link to one of his videos here. So if my payloads needs precise positioning and timing, like for example for Earth observation or astrophotography, this will probably make sense. Now positioning would strictly speaking fall under GNC rather than ADC, so it's not exactly within the scope of this video, but definitely something I will want to look into in the future. In this context, it's also worth noting that GNSS receivers for consumer and industrial use, which you can basically buy anywhere, have a limitation on up to which altitudes and speeds they work, which is called CoCom limitation. This is not a technical limitation, but rather a security restriction which kicks in when a device is above 18 kilometers in altitude and travels faster than 510 meters per second. There are commercially available unrestricted GNSS modules like the Skytrack Orion B16, and I have purchased a couple of these recently. They are still in this very severe looking ESD-safe packaging under a mount of what I assume is silica gel. Now, these are considered a dual-use technology because they can be used for both civil and military application, and thus they fall under the Wassenaar arrangement, which is an international framework for regulating dual-use technologies. I would like to tell you more about these modules, but since Switzerland, where I am based, is a member of the Wassenaar arrangement, I need to make sure that I am not breaking any laws by doing so, which will probably mean going over what I can and cannot talk about with a legal expert in the field, and that's something for next year since my budget is kind of strained as it is already. That said, if you want to support the channel and help me avoid incarceration, the link to my Patreon is in the description. One potential way around using spicy dual-use tech is working with this company LumiSpace, which offers precise orbit determination by tracking your satellite with a tiny retroreflector. But that's also for a future video to explore. Let's close this sidebar for now and talk about ADCS hardware, starting with the attitude determination part. So how do we figure out where the satellite is pointing? So far, I have included an inertial measurement unit on my prototype hardware, specifically the B&O 086, which is a 9-axis or 9 degrees of freedom IMU. 9-axis just means that it has a 3-axis accelerometer, gyroscope and magnetometer on board, and then uses some fancy proprietary sensor fusion algorithms to determine the way it's pointing very accurately and reliably. I put a few resources about these sensors in the description, so I won't cover them in any detail here. This 9DOF part is great for experimentation and learning on the ground, but what we do need to make a note of is that accelerometers don't work in microgravity because they're made to expect a constant 1g acceleration, and if that's not present, they don't produce any useful output. So what I plan to do is to use separate gyroscope and magnetometer devices. A 3 degrees of freedom gyroscope will tell us the rate of rotation in 3 axes, and as far as I can tell, basically any part will do. I saw a few CubeSat projects use these TDK MPU 3300s, which are now obsolete, so I plan to use this IM2380HT instead. If you know of a gyroscope you can recommend, please leave a comment. The job of the magnetometer is to determine the heading, so it's basically a digital compass. For this, I found this lovely ruggedized PNI RM3100 CB module, which actually has flight heritage and even comes with a paper analyzing its susceptibility to radiation. It's always a delight for me to find an ideal part like this one. It's not exactly cheap, but given the fact that the ADCS is kind of a critical subsystem and this part has flight heritage, I'd say it's easily worth the $50. One thing to consider with the magnetometer is that it's an incredibly sensitive instrument and it will receive interference from other parts that generate a magnetic field, like traces that carry high currents. That's also one of the reasons why I'm not planning to use permanent magnets for passive stabilization, because they would constantly bias the magnetometer readings. Ideally, you would put your magnetometer outside of the CubeSat on a boom, which is actually a common thing to do. Here are some commercial ones made by CubeSpace. The third and final attitude determination mechanism that I would like to have on board is a star tracker. There are also sun and planet trackers, which are great for course orientation data, but I would like to try and implement the star tracker because 1, it will give me much more precise data. 2, it sounds like a great challenge to implement this in a way that's reliable, easy to get regulatory approval for, and use low power. And 3, something about using the stars for orientation just speaks to the sci-fi romantic in me. I don't know, star trackers are just cool. Luckily, there is an open source star tracker project by the CubeSat team at University of Washington, which will be a great starting point. And also I plan to collaborate with Dr. Thomas Albin on this, who was part of ESA's Rosetta team and worked with ADCS data there. He has a great channel about astronomy and specifically Python for astronomy, which you should definitely check out. Looking around a bit, I found that there is a massive body of research into all things ADCS, which is fortunate because once I have all the devices for attitude determination in place, I will also need a way to make sense of all of their outputs together. So I will absolutely dive into sensor fusion algorithms and control theory in the future, which also means I'll run into quite a bit of math, especially when it comes to vectors, rotations, and coordinate frames. As I'm progressing into a bit more advanced topics with this project, I find myself wanting to brush up on my math foundations here and there. And that's one of the reasons I've been using Brilliant for years. Their coordinate geometry course is great for building intuition about how positions, distances, and shapes behave within a coordinate system. And then the coordinate transformation course takes that one step further by showing how to move between different coordinate systems. And that's exactly the kind of thinking that shows up in navigation and attitude determination. Brilliant's courses are fully interactive and created by experts. You learn by actively solving problems and not just watching videos, which works much better for me. I also find myself using the Brilliant phone app quite often when I'm traveling somewhere, like on this recent trip to lovely Geneva. Learning beats doom scrolling any day if you ask me. To learn for free on Brilliant for a full 30 days, go to brilliant.org/buildacubesat, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the show notes. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription with unlimited access to everything on Brilliant. If we now zoom out a bit, my current roadmap for attitude determination looks roughly like this. First, start with an integrated IMU for development and testing, which is where I'm at right now. Then move to a discrete magnetometer and gyroscope setup, and later add a star tracker for higher accuracy. On the navigation side, GNSS would provide position and precise timing. So that's the sensing side. Now let's look at how to actually control the spacecraft. The most accurate way for pointing a CubeSat is by using reaction wheels, which you have probably seen before. This University of Bristol video is a good primer on reaction wheels. Also, Zach over at Breaking Taps started designing a liquid metal-based reaction wheel, which I highly recommend checking out. The thing is that these are kind of hard to make yourself because they need to be very precisely balanced, and since we are working on a small scale, we also need to make sure that all the mechanical parts survive launch. The tiny axles that these wheels run on need to stay intact, otherwise it will be a very bad day. There's at least one open source reaction wheel project by Orset that I could find, and it seems like a pretty steep challenge mechanically and electronically. You could also buy them, for example from Rocket Lab, but I assume even the smallest model will run in the thousands of dollars. Therefore, for the moment, I'm going to stick with Magnetorquers, which are still a challenge, but probably a bit less so. But as it turns out, there's someone in the community who plans to start working on reaction wheels once the development kits are available, which of course would be amazing. If you want to stay in the loop with what the community is working on, you're welcome to join the Discord. When it comes to Magnetorquers, there is a bunch of research into these, plus the control algorithms like B-Dot are pretty well documented, so I'm confident that I can make it work. Hardware-wise, there are various implementations of Magnetorquers, but they all use coils or rods, often called torque rods, that generate a magnetic field when current flows through them. That field pushes against the Earth's magnetic field, which causes the satellite to rotate. To keep things easy to manufacture, I plan to have PCB coils below the side panels on the X and Y axes. These PCBs you see here are just placeholders. They have the right dimensions but are just blank for now, so no coils on them yet. In the Z-axis it will either be PCB coils on each end or a dedicated PCB with torque rods inside the stack, but that remains to be seen. I would like to avoid having to wind custom coils, but I have also never worked with PCB coils, so there's a lot to learn. Luckily, there is a bunch of material on PCB coils out there, like Carl Bugeja's excellent channel. The trade-off is that Magnetorquers are much less complex than reaction wheels, but also less precise and slower. The best pointing accuracy you typically see with Magnetorquers is ±5 degrees, but it could be up to ±20. And it takes on the orders of minutes to settle into a new orientation. This is of course an oversimplification because it depends on a lot of things, like the hardware we're using and the orbit we're in. But the point I'm trying to make is that reaction wheels are much more precise and the maneuvers take on the order of seconds. But again, they are complex, costly, and will get saturated. So probably the ideal setup would be to have both. Magnetorquers for coarse pointing and desaturation, and reaction wheels for precision and speed. There is a lot to figure out on the Magnetorquer PCB side alone, like track width, number of turns per layer, number of layers per panel, and also how to drive them. And then testing, characterizing, and writing software for these actuators will be a whole adventure which may or may not involve building a Helmholtz cage. But all of that is most likely for 2027 and beyond. For today, this is all I wanted to mention regarding the ADCS, and I will follow up as soon as I start working on it in earnest, so consider subscribing if you're interested. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you very much for watching all the way through. Let me know if you liked this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.